And welcome to the Daily Space Weather, folks. Looking at the sun here at 94 angstroms to see no sunspots. Pretty low levels of solar activity. We briefly got into geomagnetic unrest conditions several hours ago. And let's take a look at some more information, like 193 angstroms. And this view will show you a large South Pole-oriented coronal hole and a few fleeting diffuse coronal hole areas around the equator. Again, pretty low levels of activity. Here's the 304 angstroms view. And this is a helioviewer.org movie. You can see it right somewhere. Yeah. And we see some filaments there. A little bit of a filament exchange happening there down in the southeast. And perhaps we'll make a more detailed video of that later. We will be making a cosmology segment to premiere just after this one. And now we're at helioviewer.org to look at the fields real quick. 171 angstroms view. And there are the magnetic fields. You see a little bit of magnetic field complexity there happening around this coronal hole right in this area. Again, no sunspots and pretty low levels of activity, although the solar wind is ramping up. KP index is at 3, and we may possibly get back into geomagnetic unrest conditions once again. 10.7 centimeter radial flux still at 71, so basically solar minimum conditions. X-ray flux is pretty flatlined. There's the data from the GOES 16 and 15. Next, we'll look at the real-time solar wind to see the phi angle has recently shifted, and now it's at 345 degrees. Solar wind density 2.59 protons per cubic centimeter. Solar wind speed ramping up to nearly 500 kilometers a second, having made it all the way up to, 550. I can't get it to get on there, but looks like increasing solar wind speed here. So I'm not sure if we've seen the peak of this yet, and if it keeps going up, we will probably end up back in geomagnetic unrest conditions. So that's something to keep an eye on throughout the day. There's the data from ACE. Next, we'll look at the geospace magnetosphere movies. And looking at the magnetohydrodynamic pressure. Most of it is located in the magnetotail. And for you new viewers out there, thanks for subscribing. By the way, the sun would be to the left. You can see the illuminated portion of the Earth shown here in the middle as white, the dark side as black. And let's look at the ground magnetic perturbations. Changes in the Earth's B field. And we see pulses coming out of the Pacific Ocean south of Hawaii. We see perturbations both south of South America in the South Pole, as well as apparently creeping towards southeast Australia. And we see 2 North Poles, one over Siberia and one over northeast Canada. We're going to look at more data in a minute, but I would please encourage you to consider becoming a patron, the real source of funding for the channel. We've only got 2 tiers right now, so check us out at patreon.com/smAsho, where we provide information for our patrons before everybody else, since they are the funding for the channel. So thanks, patrons, for being assistant and associate producers of the content. And if you enjoy the content here on YouTube or on BitChute, perhaps you're watching it there, here, wherever it happens to be, please press like and subscribe and share on your social media. Again, we are also on BitChute, and we just published our spectacularly sensational 1,500 subscriber special on multiple platforms. Here's the current aurora forecast. And, if the solar wind keeps rising, we expect to see more auroras kicking off. Let's look at some more data here from GOES. And the magnetometer is looking very spiky here. And we're going to continue to see these sawtooth patterns as opposed to smooth GOES magnetometer data over the next foreseeable future. And here's the data from Gong 2. For you new viewers out there, this is derived from about 50 ground-based magnetometers, as well as magnetometers on stereo B located here, and stereo A located here. That stands for ahead, and this stands for behind. As stereo A sees solar weather before the Earth does, and stereo B sees solar weather after the Earth does. So there still appears to be some sort of an active region there, possibly a sunspot south of the equator, located where this North Pole-oriented portion of the current sheet is here, shown in green. The rest of the current sheet, shown in red, is charged up by the South Pole, the solar polar South Pole field. The poloidal field that, together with the poloidal North Pole, creates what we call the B field, the one on which we live. Let's go back to some more data here. Electron flux. Relativistic electrons looking a bit in the moderate range here, expecting to see this rise to significantly higher levels. As we saw, the electron flux from GOES 14 and 16 both get significantly into warning territory yesterday, and I believe we provided an electron flux warning to our patrons. And we wouldn't be surprised to see this come back up to high levels today. Again, new viewers out there, the N's and M's are noon and midnight local time for the satellites. Next, we'll look at the ionosphere as we do daily. And it's looking pretty normal so far here. This is 6 hours of data from Government of Australia Bureau of Meteorology. And we are seeing charge-up anomalies west of South America once again, where the ionosphere is charging up at nighttime. And we've been documenting that for a couple of months now. Here's the latest image. That one from 9:30 UT. Looking pretty normal there, except there is one oddity here. It's this, looks like a measuring error on the prime meridian. Let's talk human health real quick. Were you aware that antidepressant use creates physical dependence, which is similar to something like alcohol dependence or benzodiazepine dependence, and it can kill you if you suddenly go cold turkey on your anti-anxiety meds? If you are on anti-anxiety meds, perhaps consider coming off of them, or any kind of maintenance dose of psychological medications are designed for short-term use, not over years and years. And we will leave links to the article here from SciTech Daily about antidepressant use. It's a huge problem in the US, where a lot of people would prefer to take a pill than address their behavior. Let's talk about bees. Turns out they're a little smarter than we thought. They're able to remember shapes that they can't even see. If you put bees in a dark room and you expose them to shapes that have sugar water in them, they'll remember the shapes without ever seeing them, just by feeling around, similar to the way you would have a concept of what is inside of a bag of items. So bees have a much smaller number of neurons in their brain than humans do, but they're able to do this task quite easily. So it's more interesting information about bees, and we want to know a lot about bees as they are required for life. Not interested in robot bees, folks. I'm interested in real bees. And we've got lots of habitat in the backyard, which is part of the reason why we don't cut down things like honeysuckle vines, because they're very, very important early and late season pollination crops. So in any case, another interesting article here from Cosmos. Bees, even smarter than we thought. Let's talk about more human health stories. Pro driving tips. I'm your pro driver, smAsho. Howdy, I've got a pro driving tip sunroof edition for you. I'm your pro driver, smAsho. And here I am. And here's the pro driving tip. Treat driving as a collaborative effort. Those other drivers out on the road, folks, they're not your enemy. They're just trying to get from point A to point B just like you are. So don't battle them. Help facilitate their motion down the road. Get out of their way, etc. If you're on the road, it's a transient space. So if you're not moving, get off of it. Have you checked out smAshomash.org? Or perhaps the smAshomash.com/forum, where we have an extensive section on virus. And we've recently updated it once again this morning. We're up to 5 pages of information on that, and we've been covering it every day since about January 23rd or so. So another interesting article here, this most recent one that we posted. I'll let it scroll down a little bit. Again, check it out, smAshomash.com/forum. It's part of the free-for-all section. Feel free to set up a login, and feel free to start topics and talk about whatever you want. Just keep in mind, since we will not censor you, please don't make an ass of yourself or do anything illegal. If you do anything illegal, we will have to censor you, but otherwise, it will be a censorship-free forum. We won't ban you. We won't do anything stupid and idiotic. And if we are forced to take any sort of administrative action, we will explain it. Here's the current graph, and it looks like it's leveling out. Just keep in mind, all of this data is highly underreported, as there are millions of people quarantined in China. Total confirmed cases, 76,727. Is that right? Let's refresh. Anyway, that's the current report. 2,247 deaths. Keep in mind, H1N1 killed over 100,000 people. Have you ever seen a hazmat placard on a truck and wondered what's in there? Well, if you type in UN hazmat and then the code, you'll be able to find it. One of the good spots is hazmattool.com. You can just click on hazmat search. So, for instance, if you're wondering what's in that truck that says UN 1073, that's liquid oxygen. Don't crash into a liquid oxygen truck. It could mess up your day. Perhaps download a full PDF document with all the codes, just in case of an emergency, as knowing what is in these trucks and other tanks and things could be very important, and it could save your bacon in the event of a disaster, for instance. Speaking of disasters, largest quake of the past 24 was a 5.7 at Kamchatka. Let's go up the list. Starting with a 5.4 coming in at 9:54 yesterday, just about 24 hours from when we made the video. 201 kilometers depth at the Philippines. And we're just going to scroll up the list slowly here, as we don't want to spend too much time on this. 4.6 at Japan. There's another deep quake, 130 kilometers. There's that 5.7 at Kamchatka. That one at 33.5 kilometers depth. Let's see if it's underneath a volcano. And it was out in the ocean. And that is an odd crater-like area. Let's hope it's not a supervolcano. And going back to the list, we see a 5.4 at Indonesia, and we've been seeing lots of deep quakes north of Australia there. Heads up that region. If you are located there, please have an earthquake plan. Have a bug-out bag. Know which buildings may crumble if you experience a large quake. Know where the high ground is if you experience a tsunami. And be an asset, not a liability, in the event of a disaster. As if you're wondering when the cavalry is going to arrive, it's probably because you're the cavalry. Here's a very deep quake at Japan, a 4.3 magnitude at 430 kilometers. Some small quakes strike in Puerto Rico there. Shout out to Peter Schiff. Please leave a comment if you're watching the video. And let's move on to the volcano rundown, consisting of Mount Aso, producing a 6,000-foot ash plume. Kuchino-Rabujima, flight level 3,000 there. Sakurajima exploded, flight level 7,000 there. Dakono, exploding, 7,000-foot ash plume there. Popocatépetl, exploding, 19,000-foot ash plume there. Fuego, volcanic ash emissions observed in satellite. Sangay, exploding, 15,000-foot plume there. Revenador, New volcanic emissions from Ravenador, and Sabancaya exploding, producing a 24,000-foot ash plume. Please don't fly your ultralight home-built aircraft over Sabancaya. Next, we'll look at windy.com's pressure maps. And we see high pressure dominating in the northern hemisphere. We're going to let that advance until about tomorrow around this time. It's around 5 a.m. Do you know where your pressure systems are? We see a atmospheric river jetting across the Atlantic Ocean. And let's move on to check out lightning maps. Lightningmaps.org. I like it. And when I hear thunder, I typically check it out. Shout out to Kimberly. Looks like some lightning is striking near Queensland. Heads up Richmond. Looks like there is thunder rolling in. Next, we'll look at the U.S. Doppler radar map to see very little amounts of precipitation falling right now in the U.S. A little bit of snow happened off the Jersey coast, as well as apparently in eastern North Carolina and Virginia. Probably just some slush. It's probably actually rain. But anyway. And let's look at the jet streams, which are all over the place right now. We've got doubled and tripled up jet streams. We've got jet streams blowing the wrong direction. All kinds of oddities in the jet stream. And guess what? They're not caused by CO2, and they're not even caused by, quote, global warming, end quote. Here's the eastern world. And the southern hemisphere is all over the place down there as well. Doubled up, tripled up jet streams in the north. And crazy jet stream flow. Here's a water vapor map over Europe and Africa. And here is the Americas. Let me shrink that down a little bit. And we like to mix it up occasionally on the daily space weather videos. Some major pressure gradients there over Brazil. And let's move on to a bonus, a feature. And here's the 131 angstroms view. It's 48 hours worth of the local yellow dwarf. We are out. Again, second video coming, cosmology segment. We're going to record it right after this one and get them out in succession. Thanks for tuning in, folks. Remember, stare at the sun, don't drink, and if you drink, don't drive. And since it'll never be now again, may that solar wind be at your back.